Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Chapter 2 Life at Lilliput. When I next got up, I saw the Emperor coming to visit me. He was on a horseback, and I thought that it was very brave of him, as the beast had never seen anything my size, and kept shying away and rearing on its hind legs. When he got off the horse, he studied me in great admiration, but stayed at a safe distance. He ordered his cooks and butlers to give me my food and watched as I ate. 20 small carts were filled with meat, 10 with liquor, and I finished the food quite fast. The empress and young princes were sat some distance away, but soon came to stand near the emperor. The emperor was slightly taller than his brethren. He stood strong and masculine and had an arched nose. Indeed, everything about him suggested someone of a royal bearing. At that moment, he was 28 years old and had regened for about 7 of these years in harmony. The first time I saw him, I had to lie on my side so that my face was parallel to his body, but in later days I would hold him in my hand. The emperor's dress was plain and simple, but on his head he wore a light helmet of gold, adorned with jewels and a feather of in the crest. He held a sword in his hand in case I broke loose and tried to harm him, and this sword was about 3 inches long. The hilt and scabbard were gold with diamonds. His Majesty spoke a few times to me, and I answered back, but neither of us understood what the other was saying. Several of his priests and lawyers were asked to speak to me, and I spoke to them in as many languages I knew, but it was of no use. The emperor held several meetings with his council to decide should be done with me. It was feared that I would prove a burden on the country if I stayed, as my food requirement was so much that it may cause a famine. Some suggested that I should be slowly starved to death. But then the question of how to remove my body from the city came up. But what really saved me, for the time being at least, was a little incident that I shall now tell you about. When the news of my arrival spread all over the city, all its inhabitants rushed to see me. Some mischievous youths shot arrows at me, barely missing my eye, and the captain of the guards, who were watching me, thought that the best punishment for them would be to hand them over to me. There were 6 men in all, and I put 5 of these in my pocket and the sixth in my hand. This unhappy fellow I drew towards my face and made signs as if I would eat him. He was so terrified that he shouted and shouted for help, and when I took out a pocket knife, he nearly died of fright. Even the captain was worried for a while till I cut the ropes that bound the scared man. I did this with the others too, one by one, till they were all free. This tale was told to the emperor and his council while they were discussing my fate, and they were all impressed that such a big fellow as I could also have such a gentle nature. At once the emperor ordered that all the villagers in the area of the city would every morning deliver 6 beefs, 40 sheep, and other type of meat, bread, wine, and other liquors for which the treasury would pay. 600 people were ordered to be my servants, and tents were put up around my temple for the loggings. It was ordered that 300 tailors would sew me suits, and 6 of the emperor's scholars were told to teach me the language of the land. All of these orders were obeyed. In about 3 weeks, I had learned quite a bit of the language and was able to converse quite knowledgeably with the emperor. His Majesty told me that if I wanted to show all I meant my vote to obey his commands, I would really have to give him all of my belongings. I readily agreed and took two of his officers in my hands and put them into my first coat pockets and then into every other pocket I had, except for two secret pockets which contained things I did not want them to have. One of these secret pockets was my silver watch, and the other was a small amount of gold. These two officers, after searching through my pockets, made a list of belongings, which I shall now translate in English. Your Majesty, in the right hand pocket of the Man Mountain, we found only a great piece of coarse cloth, large enough to be a carpet for Your Majesty's Chief Assembly Hall. In his left waistcoat pocket, we found an engine from the back of which were extended 20 long poles, and we assume it to be the comb of the Man Mountain. In the middle pocket of his breeches, we saw a hollow pillar of iron attached to a strong piece of wood, and on one side of the pillar were huge pieces of iron sticking out. In the left pocket was another engine of the same kind. In the smaller pocket of the right side were several pieces of white and red metal. Some were so heavy that my comrade and I could not lift them. In the left pocket were two pillars of different shapes. The Man Mountain told us that with one he shaved his beard and with the other he cut his meat. There were two pockets we could not enter, out of which he showed a huge silver chain with a wonderful engine hanging out the bottom. We asked him to show what was at the end of the chain. It appeared to be a globe, half silver and some transparent metal. On the transparent side, we saw some strange figures drawn in a circle, but when we tried to touch them, our hands were stopped by the transparent material. The Man Mountain put the engine to our ears and it made a loud noise like a watermill. We think it is some unknown animal or the god he prays to. Probably it is more like a god to him, because he told us that he does not do anything without looking at it, and it pointed out the time for every action he took in life. From the left pocket, we took out a large bag. When he opened it, we saw it contained pieces of a yellow metal. If it is of gold, it must be great value. Having searched from all his pockets, we saw a bell hanging from his waist. On its left side hung a sword of the length of 5 men. On the right side was a bag or pouch with two compartments. One of these were small balls of a heavy metal, and the other was a heap of black grains. These were not heavy, as we could hold about 50 of them in our hands. When this list was read out to the emperor, he called me and asked me for my sword. Although it had gotten a little rusty by the sea water, the blade was in most parts quite bright. The troops gave a shout about terror and surprise because the sun was shining and the blade dazzled their eyes. The emperor was not moved at all, and he asked me to throw the sword gently about 6 feet from me. Next, he asked for the hollow pillars, by which he meant my pistols. He asked me to show him how I used them, and I charged them with some gunpowder and a bullet and shot in the air. Hundreds fell down in fear as if they had been struck dead. And even the emperor took some time to recover. I was also asked to give my watch and my silver and gold money, my knife and razor, my comb, my handkerchief. All but swords, pistols, and pouch were handed back to me. I had one secret pocket which I had not told them about. This contained my spectacles, which I used for reading, and as I thought they would be spoiled or lost, I did not show them to the emperor. I had become very popular with the people by now, and soon would get many visitors who were not afraid of me. I was also hopeful that I would be set free soon and made myself as friendly as I could with the people. I would sometimes lie down and let 5 or 6 natives dance on my head. The boys and girls would play hide and seek in my hair. I had learned the language quite well. One day the emperor decided to let me see some of the country shows in which I think they excel among all the nations I have known. The best form of entertainment I found was the rope dancers performing on a thin wire thread about 2 feet and 12 inches from the ground. This rope dancing was done by only those people who wished to rise to high positions in the court. They are trained in this art from birth and are not always of noble birth. When a high position falls vacant, either by death or disgrace of the minister or officer, 5 or 6 people apply for this position by dancing on the rope. The one who can jump the highest without falling gets the position. Very often, even the ministers are asked by the emperor to dance on the rope to show him that they have not forgotten how to do so. Flimnap, the treasurer, was very good at this sport. I have seen him do a somersault on a rope no thicker than a thread in England. My friend Deldesrel, the principal secretary for private affairs, is the best after Flimnap. There are sometimes very dangerous accidents, and the danger is the greatest when ministers are asked to dance on the rope, because it is usually after some time in office and some are out of practice. The horses of the emperor's army were no longer shy of me and used to come up to my feet without fear. The riders would leap over my feet and hands. One day, and I had an idea. I called for sticks about 2 feet high and placed them in a square, and I tied the edges of my handkerchief to the sticks and stretched tight till it was like the top of a drum. Then I asked the emperor's permission to call for some of his horses and officer. When they came, I took 24 of them